Hi, dosers. My name is Paige Payne. I work here on the Vista campus in the Young Adults Ministries and in the high school ministries. And recently, my husband and I, we sat down, new year, new us, and we looked at our calendar, and we had 21 nights in a row of obligations. And if you are one of those obligations, we love you very much. But we just were like, this is crazy. And personally, and I've been like reading books on this too, and all of the data lines up that when we don't stop, we actually become very disconnected from our souls itself. And stopping and taking time to just not be on is when our souls catch up to us and we actually get to be with the one who designed us and created us, and that's God. So as we kind of talk this week about Sabbath and what Sabbath is, the word Shabbat is this word in the original text, and really the two words for Shabbat are to stop and to delight, and that's what those two words mean. And I think about like what our world is telling us and what the world we live in. And it's crazy. Like we just wake up and we hustle all day to get our to-do list done and to try and live like our best life. And then we wake up the next day and we do it all again and we're tired and it's nonstop. And personally for me, there's like a huge part of how do I prove myself? Like how do I like be productive enough and get enough done? And like, I don't know, how do we like make our days worth it or whatever, make ourselves worth it? And so it's just the nonstop hustle, and we live it and we breathe it, and we think like, if I could only get a vacation, like I'd be fine. And vacations are great, but it's crazy thinking about the way that God actually designed the world, and the rhythm that he built into it is 6 days of work. He created for 6 days. He was a producer. He was efficient. He was effective. He made stuff happen. And then on the seventh day, he stopped and he rested and he delighted, which Shabbat is what Shabbat means. And it's interesting that we think like, how can I fix my life so that I don't have to take a day to stop? And what's interesting is that studies show, and there's a 2015 study that showed that actually productivity kind of caps around 50 hours. That someone who works 75 hours and someone who works 55 hours actually logged the same amount of productivity, which shows that our design is being played out in our world before us, that a rhythm of rest and stopping is actually necessary for us to be productive people as well. God wants us to be productive, but he also wants us to build in this time of Shabbat and rest. And it's interesting because it is the only spiritual discipline that makes it in the 10 Commandments. And my favorite thing to think about is if you look at, so the 10 Commandments are given in Exodus, and they're given again in Deuteronomy. And the interesting thing about the one that's given in Deuteronomy is it says this: observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy, as your Lord is holy. Like, okay, so this isn't just some like thing that God wants us to do to take a break so that we feel better. It's actually a holy day. And then it says this, it says, remember that you were slaves in Egypt and that the Lord your God brought you out of there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. God making a direct line between what is holy, but not just that, between that he gave freedom to captives. Remember that by taking a day to rest. And I think about how we can proclaim freedom from this crazy world of hustle and of fast speed and of production and efficiency and just working harder and faster and packing more into our schedules and being more busy, and how praise that is, and how we can say that I'm going to take a moment to stop and proclaim the gospel freedom, that I am free from the world around me because of the one who I find my life in. And that I'm not defined by what I can produce, by what I can do, by how much I can pack in my schedule. I'm going to proclaim freedom of that internally and outwardly by saying I'm going to take a day to not engage in that sort of way. I'm going to take a day to proclaim freedom, that I am not what I can produce, I am not what I can do, but I am who I am because the Lord my God is holy. What an amazing thing to say that my provision does not come from me, but it actually comes from the Lord himself. We say that, but do our lives actually display that? And a Sabbath is a really cool way to display that. So I invite you to join me on this journey of figuring it out. Thanks, dosers.